Hello, this is Pixie Enough Video. I hope you're doing well, I hope you're fine. Maybe. Depends how you feel, what's going on. And I guess really I was thinking about today is kind of grief and the afterlife and other sort of maybe more spiritual questions, and whether we believe what we believe in. You know, it doesn't really matter too much, because it's a case of just sort of analysing what we can surmise and what we can make sense of. I mean, if we try to analyse, say, science is based on what we're able to understand, how we can measure things with our senses, and the technology and equipment that we create. If there's things that are not in electrical or magnetic, that are some other anomaly like gravity, gravitons, there might be something that we're not is not quite in a wave part of the spectrum. If we can't measure it properly, then we can't build the science, because science is built on this sort of some of it comes from the theory, a thesis is put together, demonstration. But if you're unable to demonstrate the science, then it doesn't work, and you know, sometimes that happens in some situations. Let's go. Stay out on the wide side, because I've got something that can measure my speed, and I'm going slightly high. Now dropping speed down. So that, I mean, that's just one thing. I'm not trying to sort of put science under the microscope, but then, you know, spiritually, if you can't I guess the spiritual stuff, or maybe magic, anything, it just hasn't got the science built around it, whether it's pseudo, whether it might involve some quackery. It just means by somebody applying certain labels, it's I don't believe in it, or I believe in this. This was quite interesting when people talk, say I'm an atheist. I mean, I don't really understand. You haven't decided to believe there is a God. You reject religious forms of identifying some sort of higher being. But then they say agonistic sort of preferences, I guess. But then you might say, well, I haven't really figured it out, but I'm open-minded to there's something I'm trying to make sense of. Or maybe just I don't actually want to go into any camp at the moment, and you can't. You know, if you're asked what your religion is, you say, well, if you said none currently, they wouldn't reflect it that. There's just, you know, let's say not applicable or something. You know, you couldn't just have this sort of or maybe more like I am. Is I've adopted a certain sort of theologian type esoteric beliefs, because there's basically it's things I've been exposed to, which is culturally a bit more able to access, and that I've been able to apply at certain levels in my life, like some Zen Buddhist teachings they've reflected, or dealing with emotional stress, or being angry, or maybe not liking yourself, or you're going through a dark period in your life and you're looking for some answers. And then also interpretations of that spiritually, like I've talked about things like shadow beings, other things that potentially, because within the Quran it would talk about the jinn and having a different religious faith within them. They've identified that these beings are from different cultures, and they've absorbed or learnt from cultures, and therefore they've assimilated some form of religion to do with it. But also by saying that, it reinforces the narrative that it could be, you know, that these teachings are correct, or this religion, you know, this type of root part of the religion are all connected. So it just tells a different story. It's just the unknown. So that's, you know, any being that's, I guess, has passed into the realm of what we consider spirits, it's that possibly things that are in different dimensions, and therefore they can't perceive. Yeah, that's what they said about dimensions. Something in a lower dimension can't perceive something in a higher dimension, but we might straddle between more than one, and therefore we have some presence there. And then they also talk about emotions. So kind of emotions could be less dimensional. They could be they could anchor us into one mode of thinking or existence. You know, there's always this thing about feeding off emotions, spirits, and anger, and also when people go through changes as well, the energy they might release, like when they go through puberty and stuff like that. So this is sort of quite an open, esoteric conversation we're having here, so don't worry too much. If this doesn't apply to you, it's fine. It's just something you can put to the back and have a look at another time. I mean, basically, I wouldn't want to say there's. I mean, some people look at things with a certain polarity, and there's rights and wrongs, and that's it. And you basically got a very predictable path that would simulate something that's almost robotic. You know, a logical society, emotions function around logic. Not that logic can function around emotions, and that emotions might be some other force that's behind something else. There might be something that at our level of understanding, we know emotions as a kind of gearbox of tools that we use to deal with social situations to better improve our survival. That's probably the logical way of looking at it. But then the thing is that you wouldn't base any logic if you didn't have any emotional drivers there. Like a lot of the things you generate from the feeling of love. You might say, well, love is a chemical reaction. Yeah, but the byproducts of love are much more fundamental. If you didn't love somebody, you wouldn't have any children. Or you might not see the need to. Or you may have lots of children, but the outcome of them children is there might be not better versions of you. You might be just creating for the sake of it, or whatever, which is going on in society. There is this area of the less you care about something, the more attractive you are. Just don't care. Well, that is true. You're more attractive for somebody who doesn't want a long-term relationship, because then they can know that they can break up with you quite easily, move on. Fear of commitment, all these things are thrown out the window. So that's part of all that's going on there. But I was looking at grief, and I was sort of kind of meditating on it, thinking about it. Where's my brakes are a bit due to get some work done. A bit worn down by the sound of it. Yeah, that grief as a model could be decentralised. That Carl Jung touched upon the sea of consciousness, and that we are, even though we're centralised as we are as humans, as our beings, and our consciousness does shift, it does go through phase shifts, otherwise you wouldn't be able to go to sleep in different modes of consciousness. But as a being that passes in death, if consciousness formulates some sort of an energy, the entity, the being that we are, I'm going to break, thank you, that I'm aware of decentralisation in that we become a part of something. There we go. Something bigger than us, that's a collective. And it's also what touched upon Buddhism. Basically, well, I don't have a particular soul, it's actually a part of the whole universe. You know, I'm just sort of wired into it all a bit. Like a reverse tree trunk, is that you're spreading out the branches or roots into these other dimensions, and energy becomes a part of them. So it's unified. But I think the other way of looking at it is something that's decentralised. Is that it's these like fractals of your being are shifted into a just sort of kind of wide energy matrix, like the way radio works, in that your frequencies of energy are just going out and picked up, and that people are tuning into that. I mean, I've had a few sort of I guess I could call them psychic connections. I was just thinking about the Queen. I'm not saying I could speak into the Queen or anything, but I was kind of connecting with my grief, and also as a kind of like empath type thing. I mean, a lot of us are going through it. If you're, even if you're not into the royalty at all, because I'm not really. I just was watching stuff to do with her life, and I seem to be sort of feeling it a bit. I'm feeling very emotional energy. I'm just sort of like, my eyes are teary, and yet I'm not really concentrating on anything emotionally because I don't have any connection. I just see a kind of a hardship there, and that's something that's grown up as a part of a legacy, is somehow part of me, and that it no longer exists in the form that I used, like a hub or a central point, and that energy is now a part of us. We've had to sort of infuse it into our identity. Maybe this is what culture is. Culture is like a fusion of things, but different aspects. But this is a more kind of, in this kind of metaphysical sense, because I shouldn't really be feeling so much grief from the Queen. I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to bed crying or anything like that. It's just, but no, when I've been watching stuff emotionally, my eyes have been welling up. I've just been feeling like an emotional connection of some sort. And I was trying to make sense of it, and it's sort of like, from my understanding, I was trying to meditate on the Queen, and I'm trying to figure out what I was picking up on. So I could see her as a younger form, and it was more that she has sort of become a part of the consciousness. She's become a part of the unity consciousness, which probably explains why when people die, often people say, well, if there is an afterlife, can you come back and let me know? Maybe they do. They're a part of your memory, they're a part of your dreams, they're part of your way you think, they probably formulate a part of your biology if they're related to you. They are a part of you, but they can't act in a centralised manner, and it is decentralised. So you say maybe their memories have become more vivid, maybe more meaning in something they passed on, in that the being of the person is not a living human anymore, is that it's become energy, and this energy is also infused with knowledge. So I don't know if that makes any sense. I mean, in my work, I work with a lot of different clients, and some of them I build up relationships, and they pass away. And I usually try to have a period of distance and allow my body to adjust and make sense of the grief. And some people might say, oh, like digest the situation in some way. But yeah, I mean, possibly, especially if you've got any sort of gut emotions in there, that's probably a good use of language. Yeah, because it's a stress, and the body needs to understand. And the way it moves on is that it takes aspects of that relationship and it adds it to the being I am. So maybe we are a product of decentralization anyway, in the way we memorize things and remember, and we think about things and connect to things, and things, experiences that have shaped our life, because the actual event is gone, but the imprint is still there. So I mean, it's quite possible that it's a different way of adjusting, because we often with trauma think of everything as a finality, and that it's they're no longer there, and there's no way forward, and that's more, I guess, when you focus just purely on the emotional, because the emotional feedback is being broken down. The drug has stopped, if that's what they were offering. They were giving you some sort of insight or connection. Yeah, so it can be quite a deep, meaningful connections there. Quite beautiful as well, I guess. If we look into our soul, it just means that we're, even if we want to look at things over logically, that we have a deeper structure there that makes us this herd social being that we are. How we sort of can interconnect with that. I guess it's very reflective as well, so it's important to just sort of you are grieving, and allow yourself to find a neutral state emotionally as well, so that you're able to process it. It's a bit like when I would learn to drive. I decided that actually, if you're going to drive, it works from a subconscious sort of level. It works in the parts of my brain that I don't really. I mean, I engage with them obviously, but it's like catching a ball. Your body does it automatically, so it has to learn by relaxing and then allowing that part of it, the intuition and other things to sort of key in, because it's fine motor mechanics. It's the same stuff that deals with balance and walking around and positioning and all these other things. I guess it's the reptilian brain of us, which is quite good when we talk about royalty, and then we talk about reptilian brains. Anyway, have a great one and speak to you soon. Bye.